first of all, we'll start from the beginning of your life. What was the name given to you when you were born?
Well, my mother always said that the minute my father saw me as a tiny baby, she says, we'll call her Muriel, which is my name. Nobody ever knew why. Everybody guessed, but nobody came up with the right thing. So somebody said, well, maybe that was that was the name of his original girlfriend. So Muriel I was, and am. Although my friends call me Musie,
Huh. And what
Musie, and Grandpa always called me Musie, never anything else.
and what's Moosey's? Where'd that come from?
Musie,
Uh huh.
heaven knows. Grandpa called me it, and it was okay.
What was your last name?
My last name was Medford,
Hmm?
Medford.
Okay.
It was, I don't know if it was Scottish or English, because I'm a little bit of both.
Uh huh.
My grandmother was Scottish, and I tell you, that woman had the reddest hair you ever saw.
Do you remember her maiden name?
Antrobus. And
Remember?
I always said, well, that she must have been offspring of a Viking or something, because at one time, the Vikings and the English had a battle going. The Vikings came from, do you know? I can't remember.
Norway.
Yeah, up there somewhere.
Yeah.
And so my grandmother came from that part of the world.
Huh.
And then my father, his ancestors, was a derivative of Scotland and England. So,
Do you remember how to Antrobus?
Antrobus.
Do you remember how you spell that?
Antrobus.
Huh.
That was my grandmother's name.
Interesting.
I'm part Scottish, English, and Viking, wherever that is. I know, but I can't remember.
And tell me about where you were born and what you remember of that place.
I was born in Barbados. It's a small island, 166 square miles, and very green, had a lot of trees, and my father managed a plantation which grew sugarcane and sold the sugar to all the other places that wanted sugar. And he he had that job for almost 20 years, and then he left it, and for a while he didn't have a job. We lived off the bank, and my mother, um, she never had a job. She just had two kids, myself and my brother, and she had a lot of friends. Everybody called her friend. Every time somebody on the plantation had a baby, they'd bring the baby to see my mother because they knew she would give them a layette. She spent her time making baby clothes.
Huh.
I was always sad that she couldn't see my babies because when they were born, I was in America. And she died, I can't remember. She died shortly after I left.
What were your parents' names?
My mother's name was Edith, and my father's name was Lawrence.
Oh,
That's who Larry is named for.
okay.
His two grandfathers, Lawrence and Anthony. And I had a happy childhood. I went to a private school, and I liked it. They said I was smart, and so I went through the whole. They didn't call them grades; they called them forms.
Hmm.
So our highest form was six.
Huh.
So I went through that. I didn't graduate though because my mother and father went to Montserrat. My father had a friend who wanted to go to England to see his family, and he asked my father if he would uh, manage the plantation till he came back. So we went to Montserrat because my father wasn't doing anything at the time.
Hmm.
And
You're talking about Montserrat. Was that part of Barbados?
no, that's an island in the West Indies.
Oh.
And it has several volcanoes. They're not big volcanoes, but small. And it's a nice little island. I liked it, but very mountainous, very rocky. I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been back since we left.
So you were there for a while. You were born in Barbados, then moved to Montserrat?
Yeah, we lived in Barbados for quite a while. I moved to Montserrat when I was about, how old was I? Probably about 15 or 16.
Okay.
And my brother stayed in Barbados as a boarder because he was still in the lower grades. And I was ready to graduate, but I didn't. I figured it was okay. I was going to get married anyhow, so why do I want all that education?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in Montserrat, I liked it, although I didn't like the volcanoes. Because the funny thing was that they said that one day, Montserrat was the name of the volcano, and it would blow up, And it did. A year after we left, the darn thing went sky high.
Oh, wow.
And took half the island with it.
Oh, wow.
And the funny thing was, the estate we lived on the island was part of the blow-up.
Wow.
If we had stayed there, I don't know if we would have gone up with it or not.
Oh, wow.
Had some beautiful beaches, though. They were really small beaches, but the sand was black from the ash, the volcanic ash. But the water itself was so clear. And it belonged, the beach, some of the beaches belonged to the plantation. So we could walk down there, my brother and I, we would go down every morning and go swimming. And you could see all the little fish swimming around,
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful.
So you were in Montserrat in Barbados. What year were you born? Do you remember?
1921.
Okay. So in the 30s and 40s, you were on the islands?
I left Barbados when I met Grandpa. And that was the war started in 1944. America and Germany, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And that's when they sent a contingent of American army to Barbados. And Grandpa was one of them. And I remember it was Easter, and I went to a dance at the club with my brother. And I noticed this, I didn't know he was an American soldier, he was just a soldier. And I noticed him looking at me, and I kept looking at him. And after a while, my brother brought him over, and he says, Muriel, this is Paul. Paul, this is my sister Muriel. And he walked off. And the two of us were standing there, and I found out, I asked him where he was from and what he was doing in Barbados, and he told me all that. And then he asked me, did I live there, in Barbados? I said, yes. Been bred and born here. And, we just got talking. After about 15-20 minutes, he looked at me. He says, would you think I was crazy if I asked you to marry me? And I said, would you think I was crazy if I said yes? That's all there was to it.
How old were you?
1944. I was not quite 23.
Okay, so you were older. And he was how much older than you?
He was 28.
Huh.
And, but the funny thing was that we were ready to be married. We had gone and talked, because he was Catholic. And the first thing he asked my mother, would you mind if we were married by a Catholic priest? And my mother says, as long as you go and be married by my minister first. So that's how I was. I was married in the morning by the, what do you call him? Episcopal priest, minister. And was married it was just the two of us with his brother and sister. Yeah, they were the witnesses. And then in the evening, we had a big blowout wedding, married by the minister. No, this time we were married by a priest. And all the friends and family and everybody that could be there.
So you were Episcopalian?
I was Episcopalian, only we called it Church of England.
You call it Church of England.
Yeah. And he
And
was Catholic.
uh-huh.
And
So
I
how
always said from the beginning that I would become Catholic only if I had kids, because I didn't want them asking me questions that I didn't know the answers.
so how soon after he married you were you married?
Oh,
He asked you to marry him, and then how soon afterward did you get married?
well, let me see. I met him at Easter on Sunday, and I went to New York about 3 weeks later.
With him?
Yeah. No, I went first, and I stayed with his family, with his mother, and then they sent him back from Trinidad, and then we were married by the priest, and we had the big wedding and everything.
Okay.
You know.
What was Grandpa's parents' names? Remember?
You know, I don't know.
You don't know?
I remember my mother describing his father. She didn't know his mother because his mother didn't like Barbados, and she went back to England. She was from England, and his father was from Scotland. And his mother always said that he was short and stocky, with a very red complexion. His hair was as red as a beet, she said. And he was the chief of all the police in Barbados.
Grandpa's father was?
Yeah.
No. Grandpa's father? Not in Barbados.
In Barbados, yeah.
No, wait. Grandpa's father was the chief of police in Barbados?
Of all the police in Barbados.
Okay.
So, and as I said, his mother went back to England.
Huh.
And my mother's father was a horseshoer. What do you call that?
Blacksmith?
Blacksmith, yeah.
Oh wow. She was a female blacksmith.
Yeah, he owned his own whatever you call it, where you shoe the horses.
Uh-huh.
And my grandmother, she was Scottish. And I think I said her hair was red as a beet. And so long she always boasted she could sit on it. And she was very short. And when I found out about the doughboy, you know, the Pillsbury doughboy, I said my grandmother could have been the Pillsbury doughboy. Yeah.
That's funny.
And she was so soft, you know, and I used to love to sit on her lap because I was little. I was only like 6 years old. That's when she died.
So this was your grandparents then?
My grandparents.
Okay.
I never knew my father's parents.
Okay.
So, and I only had one brother.
What was his name?
Mervyn. And he had this horrible disease that no doctor could find out what it was. Everything he ate sort of didn't do any good for him. He was skinny, he was little. My mother took him to 9 doctors before the 9th doctor looked in all his medical books and found out what was wrong with him. He had pinworms.
Oh, wow.
You know, they stick on the intestine, and as fast as he ate something, they took care of it.
For how long did he have pinworms?
Golly.
Years and years?
I don't think it was years because my mother did find a doctor. It was a few years. And I remember him because he was 2 and I think I was about 5. And he was so white and sickly looking, you know. But he was the most beautiful baby you ever saw. I always wish that some of my kids looked like him. He had blonde curls in ringlets, and my mother didn't cut his hair until he went to school. And the teacher said he couldn't come to school with long hair. He looked like a girl.
That's funny.
Oh, my mother cried when she had to cut his hair. Now, he was always a smart one, you know. He knew everything. But I remember he was.
Did he stay in Barbados when you came over to America, or
no,
what happened to him?
He had already left. He wanted to go to Vancouver to college, and he'd been accepted. He was going to be a lawyer, and then he got influenza because they had this influenza outbreak, and everybody was getting sick, and he got it, and it turned into pneumonia. He almost died, but he didn't, and so then he didn't go to Vancouver, but my mother died, and after that happened, he decided, well, he'd just stay in Trinidad. So he lived in Trinidad, and this always amuses me. He married an Indian, not a red Indian, an Indian from India. And I met her once, and she was everything that my mother would not have liked. I mean, she wasn't a dainty, you could see some Indian girls, and they're really small and really pretty. She was fat and short. She wasn't pretty, she was pleasant looking. And I often wondered what appealed to my brother in her. I mean, there must have been something, you know. But what got me was when I met her, and she kept talking about my mother because she had heard so much about my mother. She says, I would have loved to meet your mother. She sounds like such a nice lady. And I thought to myself, lady, if you ever met my mother, she would have sent you pilings of myself.
So, what was it like growing up in Barbados then as a kid?
Oh, yeah, I never wanted for anything.
What kinds of things did you do to pass the time and have fun?
I went to a private school. I rode horseback, had my own horse. Her name was Daphne. And, I had a lot of friends from school. And we always had stuff to do. Do whatever it is kids do today. Go to the stores, go shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was a very outgiving thing. If I saw something I liked it, she says, well, if you like it that much, go buy it.
What was your mom like?
Huh?
What was your mom like?
Let's see. She had brown hair that she always boasted she could sit on it. It was so long. And she wore it during the day in 2 braids on each side. And when she went out, the braids came out and she just coiled her hair in the back. She had a lot of hair. And she was very strict though. Boy, I better be sure that who I brought home when it came to boys. Most of them were the sons of her friends. So she knew them. But, and she liked to cook. Not so much cook, she liked to bake. She could bake all kinds of cakes and stuff. And her friends used to, whenever they got married, they would come to her. She had to make their wedding cake. She made beautiful wedding cakes. And boy, did they taste good.
Neat.
But she was strict.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she rode herd on me and my brother. We never got into trouble or anything.
What about your dad? What was he like?
Huh?
Your dad, what was he like?
He was quiet, and he was even stricter than my mother. Wherever we went, we had to tell him where we were going, when we get home, who we were going with. I mean, it was just like being home. But, and whatever I wanted, I could get. I just asked him for it.
Huh. Were you well off back then?
No. I remember saying something like that with a little boy around. He said, ooh, you were rich. I said, no, I wasn't rich. I just had a little bit of money to spend. But it was fun, growing up.
So when you got married, you moved to New York? No, New York City or?
New York City. There was a place called Richmond Hill, just outside the city, and that's where my mother-in-law lived. And they lived in what would you call it? An old-fashioned house, 3 levels.
Like a Victorian type house, or?
I'd say it was, yeah. No, let me see, there was a basement, and then you come up and there was a living room, dining room, the whole thing. And then there were bedrooms, and on top of the bedrooms there was an attic,
Hmm.
which I hated. But
What was your mother-in-law's name?
Josephine,
And her husband?
good question. What the heck was his name? You know, I can't remember it. I always called him Dad.
Yeah.
And so did my husband. He called him Dad too.
So you lived with them?
Um, Not for a long time. We only lived there. I think I was only there for about 3 months
Hmm.
because they transferred Grandpa to California. He was in the army, and
What did he do in the army?
he was an engineer. And then when they transferred the army to the Air Force, it was still the army, but it was the Army Air Force, and he was still an engineer. He took care of all the planes and everything. He liked that. He liked, as I said, playing with the planes.
Where in California?
We're in California, Oakland, just outside. The Air Force base was right outside of Oakland.
You moved with him then, or
Yeah.
had you had kids at that point?
No, but I got pregnant 3 months after we got married.
Okay.
Then Bobby was born in Oakland. And then where the heck was he transferred to from Oakland? Was it back to New York? Yeah, he was transferred to Mitchell Field, which was in New York.
Uh-huh.
And we stayed there for quite a while. I can't remember how long. But of course, then he was transferred to Japan, and he was supposed to stay in Japan for 5 years, and I was going with him. Only they changed it from 5 years to 2. He only stayed there for 2, and by then I was pregnant. So they hastened that. Actually, they had said 5, but they changed it to 2 when they found out I was pregnant,
Huh.
and they sent him home. And then let's see, where did we live? Was that Oakland? No, not Oakland. I can't remember where we lived after that.
So but you didn't go with him, right? He was there by himself.
Huh?
He was in Japan by himself.
Yeah. As I said, I was going, but then I got pregnant, and they decided against it.
Mm.
Wasn't too bad. They paid me for being married. I got $50 a month.
Mm.
And then when the baby was born, they paid her, Bobby. She got $50 too.
And you lived on the base at that point?
No, we never lived on the base.
Oh.
We had a house in Oakland, but I'm trying to think. Grandpa didn't get very much. I think he got like $17 a month.
Wow.
Of course, when he was in Japan, he got more.
Uh-huh. So you guys had a big family. Did you ever discuss that you wanted a big family, or did it just happen?
I discussed the fact I didn't want any.
Oh yeah.
And I can still remember when I found out I was pregnant, that Grandpa was working outside in the garden, and I went out with long tears coming down my face, and I was hiccuping. I was really crying, and it upset him so much. He says, "What's the matter? What's the matter? Has something happened to you?" "Yeah, I found out I'm pregnant." And he looks at me and started to laugh. I could have hit him. He says, "Well, it's too late now." That's when Bobby was born.
Hmm.
And then after Bobby, golly, we had Skipper and Marie, Laura, Kathy. I think, let me see, Larry, Peter, Jan, Maggie. No. I can't remember how many kids I had when he went to Japan. When he came back, I had 5 more.
Wow.
So I had 7 kids when he went to Japan. I didn't like that. I didn't like having all those kids by myself.
And at that point, they're anywhere from what? From an infant to 7 or 8 years old? The age range?
Um, Let me see. Did I have 5 kids when he went overseas? And then when he came back, I had 7 more. I think that's the way it was.
Hmm.
And the 5 kids were, I mean, they were just little kids, you know.
Yeah. What was it like? So you were in Oakland. Then you went back to New York for a while.
Went back to New York for a while.
And then after that, Yuma.
He went to Alabama. Now, where was I when he was in Alabama? I think I was in New York then. I stayed in New York.
Okay.
I forget how long he was in Alabama. But then we went to, I remember he said, he called me from Japan. And he said he got his orders and he had a choice of 2 places to go. One was Yuma and the other one, I think, was Oakland again. And if he went to Oakland, he wouldn't go for quite several months. But if he went to Yuma, he could come home in 5 months. I think that was it. So I said, "Well, let's go to Yuma." And I remember when we were going to Yuma and coming down the hill between the mountains, and boy, I started to cry because you would not believe what Yuma looked like. There was nothing, no grass, no trees, just rocks and mountains, and boy, I cried like you wouldn't believe. But I didn't realize I was going to live in Yuma for years. After a while, though, you know, the snowbirds were coming in. The end of every summer, the snowbirds would be there because they didn't want the heat. You know, and it was not bad with the snowbirds. Some of them were pretty nice. Some of them were horrible. But I added it up one time how long I stayed in Yuma. I don't remember. It was a lot of years. And my kids were, except for, let's see, Bobby was born in Oakland, so was Skipper. And Marie. Laura, Kathy. I can't remember. I think Larry, Peter, Jan, Maggie, all the rest of them were born in Yuma.
Yeah. What was it like having such a big family?
Horrible. Well, Paul was very good, you know.
In what respect?
He took care of them, you know, and he taught them at an early age manners. They might not have it now, but they had it when he was alive. But, no, I think my kids turned out okay, except Peter. Boy, did we have a problem with Peter. Every time the telephone rang, I thought it was the policeman, that they had picked him up for some reason. He straightened out, though, after a while. I guess he's okay. He went, let me see, how was it? Did he ever graduate from school? I think he did. I could be wrong. But he had a choice. He could have gone into the Navy, or he could have done something else. I forget what. And he decided to go into the Navy, for which the policemen in Yuma were very happy. He was out of Yuma. Oh boy, that kid got into so much trouble. Telephone rings, it's a policeman. A car drives up to the front of the door, it's a policeman.
So you've had a long life. What are some of your fondest memories of looking back at your life?
Oh gee, I don't know. I try not to look back. I don't know. It's days like this when all the family gets together. You know, I remember at Christmas, we always had the kids come home for Christmas. And holidays, all the holidays, you know, whenever the kids came home was good. And as I said, my kids are pretty good kids. You know, I don't know if they raise themselves or if they raise each other. Although Bobby used to call herself their mother because she took care of them most of the time.
Uh-huh.
But I guess they turned out okay.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to see that they had a good education, you know, and mostly they got scholarships to college. I remember, who was it, Anne Marie? I think it was Anne Marie got a complete scholarship to, where'd she go, U of A? I think she went to U of A.
Mm.
But she used to babysit for this lawyer. And I think he had a little girl, a daughter. And he liked her so much. When he wanted a babysitter, he always called and asked for her by name, you know. And she got paid well. And when she went to college, he got her a complete scholarship. Didn't cost me a penny, and it didn't cost her a penny.
Wow.
Because he said she was such a good girl.
Hmm.
You know, took care of his daughter. And I forget how much scholarship it was, but she went to U. No, I think she went to what's the one up in the mountains?
NAU?
Yeah,
Did she go to NAU?
yeah, I think it was NAU.
Hmm.
Yeah, and her scholarship was completely paid for.
Uh-huh.
All I had to do, I sent her $25 every couple of weeks. That's all I could afford.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, she was lucky. I hate to say it, but she's the smartest of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say it to the rest of the kids, although they know it.
Yeah. If there was anything you would want your kids or your grandkids or your great grandkids, if there was anything that you would want them to know about your youth, your background, where you came from, your roots, is there anything that stands out that you think is important that you would want people to know about?
No, I think they know just about anything there is about me, you know. That's, I don't know. I think every so often I would tell them something about how I grew up, you know.
Yeah.
So they just about know everything there is to know, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about Grandpa's family? Did you know much about his family?
Well, I know they came from Germany.
All of them did, or at least his mom and dad.
His mother, I think she came from Germany too, and I know his father did. And it was a time, I guess, when they had the upheaval in Germany, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody was getting out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they came, and his father, what did his father do? Oh, God, I can't remember. I can't remember what he did. I'm sure one of the kids knows, though. My mother-in-law was a school teacher. She taught high school. And she was a very smart lady, too.
Huh.
I said I was so lucky when, I hear about other people's mothers-in-law or read about them. I said, boy, was I lucky. My mother-in-law wasn't anything like that.
Mm.
She just wanted me to be happy.
Yeah.
And even my father-in-law. I remember one night I was in the bathroom, and the kitchen was right under the bathroom, and they were talking in the kitchen, that I remember my father-in-law saying, the only good thing that Paul ever brought to this house was Muriel. When he brought her to the house, that was a good thing. And I liked hearing that because I never knew that he liked me. The whole time I thought, gee, he's just standing. He was not a man that laughed. You hear something and you guffaw because it's a laugh. And he would kind of grin and that's it. Never laughed very much. But he was a good man.
So they did they flee Germany around the whole the time of the Nazis, or
I think
before
it was
then?
just before the Nazis came in.
Okay.
But it was some kind of upheaval and everybody was leaving.
Oh.
Get out as fast as you can.
Huh.
Maybe it was during World War One. Was that before or after the Nazis?
World War I was before the Nazis.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's how, because I remember the Nazis were embroiled in it somehow, because my father-in-law had I can't remember if it was a brother or a friend or somebody that he always wrote to. No, it was an aunt. He always wrote to her, and she always wrote to him, and he would always say how glad he was to hear from her. And then all of a sudden she stopped. There was nothing. And he tried to write to the government and people that he knew to see if they knew anything. Nobody knew what happened to her. She just disappeared into the thin air.
Wow.
And I think that was the Nazis. They used to go to they weren't Jewish, but the Nazis were killing everybody, whether they were Jewish or if they could find something against them, go to the house, call them out, and shoot them. And they were killing all the people like that.
Wow.
And they made some movies. It was so horrible, to watch the movie.
Yeah, those are all horrible times for sure.
Yeah.
So whatever happened to your parents then? How did their lives?
Oh, my mother died. I always said my brother killed her. Because
Your brother?
My brother, he had this horrible disease when he was a baby. And she took him to 9 doctors until one doctor cured him. My brother could do no wrong. Everything he did that was wrong, she blamed on me. And so I remember he wanted to be a lawyer from the time I can remember. He always wanted to be a lawyer. And so he had written to the University of Vancouver, and he had been accepted. So I had left by then. I had gotten married and left. And one of my friends told me that the maid had told her that from the time that my brother got the acceptance, my mother was crying. And she cried every day for a solid week until Friday evening, when my brother was supposed to go to Trinidad and get the plane to take him to Vancouver. And so he left.
She was crying because he was leaving.
Huh?
She was crying because he was leaving.
Yeah. And he left Friday evening. And Saturday morning she was still crying, and she was talking to the cook, and finally she says, I think I'll go upstairs and lie down for a little bit. And my friend said the cook told her about a half hour later she went upstairs, the cook did, to see how she was doing. She was dead.
Really?
She just went to lay down and died.
Wow.
And of course my brother didn't go to Vancouver after that.
Wow.
He got a job in Trinidad working in an accountant's office.
How come he decided not to go? Because his mother died, or?
Because his mother died. No, he.
Wow.
So I can't. He was very young when he died. I can't remember how old he was. I thought he was in his 50s, but Carolyn said that when he came to see me one time when I lived in Yuma, and Carolyn said he was in his 50s then. But he was young when he died. I know he was, but I can't remember. Never had any kids.
Stayed in Trinidad, or?
He stayed in Trinidad, and he died in Trinidad. But as I said, he never had any kids.
And your father, whatever happened to him?
He lived for a long time. He was 85 when he died, and he used to go to the. He didn't work anymore. He lived off the bank, but he used to go to various relatives, and stay with them for a while. He would go to Trinidad and stay with my brother for a while. And as I said, I don't know what he died. Maybe he got what do you call it, influenza too. But they just said he went to bed one night and didn't wake up.
How old do you think your mom was when she died?
45.
Wow.
She was young.
Huh. Did they ever determine? I mean, back then, I don't know if they were. Did they determine why she died? Did she have a heart attack, or did they know?
Yeah, that's what they said, that she had a heart attack.
Huh.
But I always said my brother killed her.
That's
If my brother had stayed in Barbados, he could have been a lawyer in Barbados. He worked in a lawyer's office. But he always wanted to leave.
Hmm.
But if he had stayed, I think my mother would have lived for a while, you know.
That's interesting.
I said, at least I was glad that I had a picture of Bobby when she was a baby that I could send to her, you know, so that she could see her.
Hmm.
But she never saw any of the other kids.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, that's interesting. Hey, well, thanks for sharing all that stuff. A lot of that stuff I didn't know.
May as well tell you something about your family.
Yeah.
I remember somebody telling me there used to be, what was it? 99%, was it the percentage? 99% blacks in Barbados and 1% white.
Oh.
And any other whites were tourists.
Hmm.
And you can tell that. You go to Barbados and the streets are just loaded with black people, you know, and all the other white people you see, they're tourists.
Mm.
They're looking in the windows and, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is now.
And you said it was a sugar plantation?
Sugar plantation that my father managed, yeah.
Yeah.
They sold the sugar, they sold the cane to the factories, because we didn't have a factory on the plantation. But then the factories, after the sugar was made, sold it to all the other islands, and even America got some of it. They made different colors of brown sugar. You've seen brown sugar, haven't you? There's the what do you call them? Not kernels. The sugar thing.
Granules?
Granules, yeah. They're bigger than the granulated white sugar you get, because that's like dust. You know, but the brown sugar was bigger. And we didn't use the brown sugar. You know, we use granulated all the time. They use the brown sugar. The black people always use the brown sugar. It was cheaper. They could get a pound of brown sugar for about 3 cents.
Hmm.
You know, whereas the white sugar was more expensive.
Hmm.
You got that in a box.
Hmm.
But it was okay living there. The school, as I said, I went to a private school. All my teachers were from England, except my French teacher. She was from Paris.
Hmm.
And my sewing teacher, what do you call that? You know, where you do sewing and stuff.
Home economics?
Yeah, she was the only one from Barbados. All the others were English and French.
And so were all your schoolmates Caucasian, white?
Yeah. Although the amazing thing, when I went back on one of my cruises, I went back to the school because I can't remember who I had with me. I had one of my friends. And I went back to the school to show her what school I went to. And of all the kids there, we had one black kid, one black girl, because it was a girls' school. And the reason why they took her is because the head of the newspaper was, what was he? He was black. And he wanted his daughter to have a better education than she could get in the public schools. So he went to the headmistress and he talked to her and he said, you know, if you will take my daughter in your school, I will give you free advertising. And you know, the school always advertised everything. And he says, you can have free advertising. And the headmistress couldn't turn that down. So she took his daughter. And that was the only black girl that I know. Maybe it's different now, you know. I don't even know if the school's still there.
Yeah.
But she was the only, and I had already left. I wasn't there anymore. But the other kids that were there said she was a really nice girl. Not pushy or anything, you know. But I said it'd be nice if I went back to Barbados one of these days and took one of the kids with me, but I don't think I will.